Woody, Andy here again. But first off, do you like my t-shirt? See, this is the band that I'm currently managing. We managed to get some t-shirts done. So if anybody would like some, let me know. I can always mail them anywhere in the world. Anyway, on to other matters. I've been watching a particular TV programme over here, and it's all about Gatwick Airport. And the old premise of the programme is that Gatwick is recently, or a year or a couple of years ago, was taken over by a different company. They've been following the transition between the two sort of periods, I suppose, and the investment that's been going on, all the changes that are being made, and watching it as made, because they're talking about different aspects of it from all different sides of it, and it's a very good program, quite interesting in its own way. I've always had a bit of an interest in sort of civil aviation. I always quite fancied working for an airline or an airport or something, because it's one of those things. It's like when you go to an airport, there's a little buzz of excitement, whether you're travelling or not. You know, you see all those names on the list of destinations, or even the flights that are arriving, and you see, you know, literally right across the world. And it's an exciting place, a bit better than the bus station, isn't it? Or even a train station, unless you're in a European destination. Anyway, but there's several things in there that remind me of when I used to work. Now, one of those things, I've never really spoken about what I did particularly, but there are several circumstances that come up where I can relate to them in so many ways, and I've written a couple of them down. One of them in this week's particular programme, I say all the change, so you see all these sort of backroom meetings that go on, the executive teams and all those little conferences they have with all the managers and that, and I can remember sitting in those rooms, whether they be sort of fairly small scale ones or company wide ones, where you're sitting in there and no one really wants to be there, because you know what it's going to be like. You're going to get bashed around the head generally, one way or another. It's a bit of a bollocking, as we would say, and one of them was like that in this programme today, so no one's particularly sure. And also you've got the people up on the top table. I'm not knocking them in any way, because I was watching this guy in this particular programme, and the managing director that I used to work for was a very nice enough guy, and I'm sure he was totally sincere in everything he said, and he believed everything he said. I have no doubt about that, and the same with the guy at Gatwick Airport. But when you listen to it as an employee, as a worker, especially in an industry that's going through change, you listen to those guys and you're thinking, is he actually on the same planet as what I am? I remember that I've watched it with my wife and happened to make the comment that about this, exactly what I'm talking about here, which is why it inspired it in some ways, was I remember listening to these guys and thinking, is this, you know, apart from that, does this guy actually believe everything he said? He seems to be in a completely different world to everybody else. And how are they so enthusiastic, so positive about everything that they speak about, and all the spiel and all the things that are going to happen, the change that's going to come, the journey that we're all embarking on, although a lot of us, myself included, the only journey you take is the one out the door, because there's always that hint of it, and it was the same at Gatwick, those sort of parallels between the two. As I said, I have no doubt these guys believed it, but they are out of touch. You know, you've only got to watch it. Another aspect of it brings this up. I've been in those conferences, and one was shown in this particular programme again. And all the people are there, they're getting their bollocking, they're all being told we have to work harder, we're under new management, it's a new regime, we're on this journey, we're all in it together, but we all need to do this, the figures don't add up, this has got to be improved, that's got to be improved. And yet, fair enough, things do have to change in their own way, but change for change's sake isn't always a good thing, and nobody likes change. Doesn't matter who you are, you're all doing your job, and you're all proud of doing your own little part of your job, even if you're not, you know, a real company man. You take pride in what you do, although the people at the top don't seem to think that you do that. But you see all these people sitting in there, and they're all being quiet, they won't say anything, and the guy standing up there is saying, well, come on, look, we're not doing well, we need to change this. And what the guy in the Gatwick programme said, I'm taking your silence as total agreement in everything that I'm saying. So if you walk out that door and don't say anything, I'm going to presume that you agree with everything that I say, and you're, you know, right behind me 100%. And when, you know, you don't do your job and I sack you, you'll understand. No one will actually stand up and say anything. A couple of examples In that particular program, they then broke off into groups. And I remember, the questions up. Let's have some questions from the floor, and nobody would actually ask questions. The only people who tended to ask questions were what we called the brown noses, the ones who were sucking up to the managers, shall we say, who wanted to go a little bit further, would never rock the boat, would never. It's not those planted questions you get in the British Parliament or wherever it is. It just gives the opportunity for the managing director, the Prime Minister, to actually say, oh yes, well this is good, we're doing this and we're moving in this direction. There's never any bad things that are said, because people won't stand up, because they know that if they are seen to be critical of the company, and it doesn't matter what the company I used to work for, the ones at Gatwick, or where you work, or where you may have worked, I'm sure you recognise this particular thing, well, you know that if you stand up and say something, or even if you do it on a one-to-one, if you say it and you embarrass that boss in some way by putting them on the spot, you're seen as being a troublemaker. You're seen as someone who rocks the boat. You could well be pointing something out to them that needs to be pointed out, because we all know, I've experienced it, that the man or woman at the top doesn't actually know what goes on down below, because they're shielded from it. Another point I can mention on that is I remember going to a conference where the company that I used to work for was going through a major reorganisation. Hadn't reached my level yet, hence the fact that I was still there. But it had been gone through some other grades and they were angry. And it comes to the question and answer session, and any questions from the floor, and a couple of people actually got up and asked very uncomfortable questions for once, and you could tell, the people that I was sitting around, we could tell, and we commented after it straight away, that the man at the top, the managing director, you could see he was taken aback by the level of anger and the level of distrust or whatever, the unbelieving of what was actually being said. This journey, as I said, the only one that some of us be taking is in the opposite direction to the company, and you could see that he was genuinely shocked. He had no idea that there was this rising level of dissent or worry, whatever it was, anger, rising up. No one had told him about this. It was all, oh yes, it's all right, mate, yeah, it's all going down nicely. They all understand, don't worry about it. And that's one of those things that I think you can see in that program. I've experienced it as well. And the other thing I'll say, I've got a few sort of notes down here, is that when they do these things, they come up with great ideas, like the company that goes into Gatwick, where I used to work, wherever you are, you can think about it. They get people in to redesign things, to rethink things, the way that things work. They never seem to actually ask the people who have to do the work in the first place. They might get down to the middle management, but they won't actually get down to the ground floor. There was a very good example of that the other day in that particular program, a different episode, where they were changing all the check-in desks and they'd redesigned. They look wonderful, they look great, they're all self-service and all this type of thing, or automated type of thing, and they spent millions and millions of pounds on this. But once they were just about ready to actually open them, they took some of the check-in staff there, and straight away two of the women started pointing out things that were wrong with it. There were no chairs. Well, how are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? And on the first day, little things didn't work. The bulk of it worked, but they hadn't actually asked the people who were going to use that equipment, people who are going to have to actually speak to the customers as they came through, what they felt. And that happens all the time. It's the people at the top don't seem to think about the people right at the bottom, and the people at the bottom and the people who are actually doing the job day to day. And increasingly, and I've seen it, the people who are at the top, the people who come into the management, whether it be middle management or higher management or even right at the top of the company, who've got no real experience of that particular workplace. And you may have the greatest intellect in the world, you might have degrees coming out of your backside, but it doesn't matter as long as you've actually got experience in the job that you're doing, some sort of idea. Yes, you can bring skills in from outside because they can be very, very useful. It's always good to get someone to come in who's from a different point of view, because people, you do get sort of closed in. I understand that. I worked for 35 years in the same industry. Yeah, I had sort of blinkers on, and it does take someone to come in from outside to maybe point a few pointers out. But my 35 years of experience surely should have counted for something. That's another reason that I think I hadn't got the job that I used to have, because I used to speak my mind when I was asked a question. I've always been one of those people that if someone asks me a question, don't ask me the question if you don't want to hear the answer. But so many times people just push things off, but those other people are still there. But that's another story altogether, maybe. But just sort of made me think about it. It gets me a bit riled up when all these sort of things happen, because I can see parallels, and I always knew that other companies, other workplaces work the same. But it's so interesting to look at that and think, I've been in exactly the same position as that scene in the program. Different industry, different walk of life maybe, but it's the same wherever you go. And some people just don't get it at all. And I'm sure that I wasn't the only person sort of pointing at the screen and telling my wife or my partner, that's me, I used to be in that sort of situation. So if you've got any stories like that, please share them. Obviously, if you're in a workplace now, I totally understand that if you can't, hence the fact that after 35 years now is the only time that I'm actually able to talk about this type of stuff. Well, the 7 years or whatever that I was in management anyway. So I'm going to leave it there. Love to hear your thoughts. If you've got any ideas, if you're watching the programme, your thoughts about that as well, and your own industries, your own thoughts and opinions, feelings. Have a little rant yourself. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for your time. I'll speak to you again soon. Goodbye.